Hi, my name's Kathy Willett, and this week we're looking at how to paint machinery, in this case a pair of track scales. This week we're looking at the type of machinery you find in factories and workshops, well worn and used but still cared for. So an integral part of my scale houses that I'm doing is a weigh scale. Well, that's what they're there for. They're actually only there to shelter the mechanical scale for the rails. So I thought, painting a bit of machinery. And it's actually quite hard to find pictures of weigh scales, and nowadays whenever I Google it I just seem to get rusty ones. So I'm going to make it up and just do a typical machine that you might find in a shop. And I've got two because I've got two scale houses, and these are just plastic kits that I've spray painted already with a Halfords grey primer. Now I generally do prime all my plastic before painting it, especially if I'm going to use Vallejo acrylic, which is what this is, because Vallejo, it's not the thickest paint in the world, so it doesn't cover particularly well. It does need something underneath it to adhere to, and it won't stick to normal plastic necessarily as well as it could. And I'm not painting it all green. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint a section green, and I've chosen a green because, well, machinery is normally green, isn't it? The green paint's dry, so time to paint the metal. Now there's loads of things you can use to paint silver with. It's a very, very common paint colour. A lot of people use oils. It's just whatever takes your fancy. Quite often I'll actually just use a silver Sharpie if I'm not going to do any other effects on it, because it's very easy to do. But what I've got for this one is actually just some Tamiya, what colour is this? X32 titanium silver. Probably isn't titanium, but my stainless steel was all used up. So it's just a case now of just putting some silver on here to give it a bit of a gleam. Up on the machinery, we need to create that look of gunk, really, industrial dirt and grime. And they would clean machines sometimes, but not very often, and the working parts would certainly all be clean and usable, but around the edges it would build up. So what I'm going to do, it also helps if you've got any slightly dodgy painting, is I'm going to use a dark wash. Now you can use any kind of wash. I'm going to use a MIG wash because I have them, and this is just a dark one. And all I'm going to do is put it on and just let it sink into things. It doesn't need a huge amount. It will sort itself out and settle into all the corners. You don't want everything to be too stark. Now, the good thing about a wash is if there's too much, it's easy enough to take it off later with just a little bit of enamel thinners. Right, so we've got these. They look very heavily white and they look a little bit shiny. And to be honest, I probably will just go over, and there's a couple of tide marks. And if you get a thinner for washes by MIG or any white spirit for that matter, you can just go and just sort of dapple them down a bit so that they blend in a bit better, which is worth doing on some of the very flat surfaces if you've got a little bit of a line across it. So next up really is just to put on a layer just to dull it down a bit and to just highlight things, give it a bit of a powdery look in some places. And it's not going to be a very oily machine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use two pigments. One is, this is MIG, AK Interactive, all of the MIG brands, AK Interactive, MIG, Ammo by MIG, all of them have got something that says dark steel or something similar. And it's basically a shiny pigment. And the other one I'm going to use is Industrial City Dirt, which is my all-time favourite pigment colour, if you have such a thing. And it's just a browny grey. You can use Industrial Factory Dirt and all that kind of stuff too. So what I'm going to do is, that's the one that's still drying, I'm just going to brush it on a bit and just brush it down so I get a few streaks just to dull everything down. And I find you always need to put a little bit more on than it actually needs or it doesn't stick, but not a huge amount. You can see the parting lines there, just enough to show that it's in use, but it's not brand new. So that was the normal, just a MIG pigment, and this one's Industrial City Dirt P039. Now the other one, I find this is best put on with your finger. This is you can see if you put it on something, you get a sort of shiny look. And this, if you look at my finger there, you can see a real shine. And the more you polish it, the more of that shine you get. So it's great for just highlighting little bits of metal, but you don't need a lot and you don't want it on the rest. So, so I'm just going to use it on the top of these weights, really, just to give it a bit of a feeling of use and shine and metal. Probably not going to use it down there. 2 reasons. 1, I can't get my finger in there. 2, it's not really going to be seen anyway. And the other thing I'm going to do with this, whilst I've got it out, is I'm just going to catch some of these edges. Now, you know, as machines get used, they sometimes get a bit worn around the edges. And I think a little bit of metal can just hang out the fact that these are a little bit more, you know, they've been bumped into a few times. Plastic shapes to machinery in a couple of easy steps.
Well, Mill-Scale Kathy may have made it aboard the spaceship, but is she ever getting fed or getting home?
Well, I might be too short to reach the tables. They haven't noticed me yet, which is upsetting. But one of them's a bit messy. He dropped a bread crumb. Well, you know, a crumb for me, it was about this big, so that kept me going for a while. And eventually I managed to wend my way somewhere where there was something I could reach to eat, and there's a bit of water at floor level, so I haven't died yet. And I know I don't need to eat, but I just feel a bit better having something in my tummy, so feeling a bit better. I wish they could hear me. I scream and scream, and at 1 to 35 they're not listening. There's this sort of loud engine hum in the background and I'm struggling to get past it, but I might try one of them later. I'm not sure whether they'll freak out seeing this little creature for them, but at least they're human, I think. No pointy ears anyway. Everyone else seems to have gathered off. They've all been off having adventures, and Mill-Scale Kathy's been everywhere, basically looking for Mill-Scale Kathy. But hey, if you believe that's the only reason, I think she just likes going out with that dog next. Oh, yeah. Nice dog, I will say, nice dog, but really? To the park that many times? I mean, and she had him sniffing around everywhere looking, well, what can I say? So anyway, enough said. So, yeah, I thought I'd come and look at the scale house. Yeah, fun, isn't it? Yeah, it's really fun, you know. Scale house. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Right. Yeah, okay.
With all the excitement in space, has anyone even noticed the machinery in the scale house?
If you enjoyed this week's episode, then subscribe to me on YouTube. Alternatively, like me on Facebook, Kathy Millett Modelling, or on my website, kathymillett.co.uk. See you next week.